Okay, this is preparing a 3D model or a finished 3D model, or pretty much anything you might want to use for artifaction, and prepare it to get boned. Boned. Okay, first we're going to have to start by importing a Beretta model that's been finished, and we want to completely replace this current scene and convert the units. Okay, at this point, a model in 3DS format will look pretty much plain. It won't look like much because the texture is not on there. So we're going to have to open up the material editor and pick the material off the object. As you can see already, there's material assigned to it, but it can't find it because either it got renamed or it's not there, and you need to find it manually. So we're going to go ahead and find it. In this case, it's in the scenes directory where it shouldn't be. And we get our Beretta TGA. Go ahead and open that. Once you do that, we hit go up, and then we hit this button, Show Map and Viewport. There we go. Looking much better already. Now the first things that we should, one of the other first things that we should do is convert it to editable poly. We gotta absolutely make sure we weld all the stray vertices, because exporting 3DS objects dramatically increases face counts for whatever frickin' reason, and it pisses me off. So we're gonna have to weld these with a radius of 0.01, or a weld threshold of 0.01, and you can see that brings it down about 1,000 vertices, and that's a lot better, and then the pieces will be welded back together properly like they should. Okay, now the next step is, since we're going to be moving these separately, and this gun has, let's see, about 1, 2, 3, 4 different parts, we're going to have to separate these parts away from each other, so it'll make selecting them and manipulating them when we're getting ready to use them in artifaction bone a lot easier. So we go in element mode and start selecting the elements that are separate from each other. First things first, we move this over here because it's a silencer. We could have an animation where you might want to put the silencer on. We got the hammer of the gun, and this little hammer right here is this whole separate little object. You move this straight up, and the reason for moving these straight up or straight to the side, it's simple, because if I move this, say if I were to move this over here at an angle, it'd be a lot harder to, you know, get it in position and move it in a place where it needs to be, as opposed if I were to just move it straight up, and then later on when I finished it and want to move it back together, I could just move it straight back down. Once we do that, we could do that to the clip, move that straight down, and everything looks like it's in order. This is one whole piece, the body of the gun. Once you're done with that, you should have something that looks like this. It's basically torn apart. You can see inside of it, but don't worry, it won't be like that for long, because we're going to be finished with it and it'll be back together the way it's supposed to be. Once you're done with that, just save it. Make sure you do save as and go to a Beretta, and just name it berettafixed.max. We'll be referring to this file later on, so just go ahead and save it. This far in place. Okay guys, this is creating actually setting up the biped and the arm set mesh for people that are using version 4.0. Okay, first of all, you guys need to open up, import the 3DS file that I included in the package, the arm setup final.3ds. I'm going to completely replace the current scene and convert units. When we first start off, we'll notice that, well, it's not in good shape. The biped is all jacked up and there's shit flying all over the place. So we're going to have to clean that up. First, we're going to have to select all the biped stuff. You press H to get this dialog, and then just select everything and hit this button. Once we got all that, we just delete it. Alright, first things first, we're going to have to fix the mesh. So once we select the arm set mesh, we hit hide unselected. We're going to have to fix the material among other things. Open up the material editor and go to the eyedropper tool and select the material off of this. And immediately we will get our material that it uses. First we'll see that this is here. We've got a material that's been renamed. We're going to have to fix that. So we come in here, we enable a material so we can see it in the viewport. Immediately we can see that right there. The second one, we're going to have to refind it. envirohand.tga. Go to 3ds Max 5, Maps, and envirohand.tga. Open that, and go up one level, hit this, and then we'll get it'll properly show up. And then right here we just enable it so it works, so we can see it in the viewport and we can work on it. That should be it for the material, I think, for now. So we'll go ahead and close that. Now we need to fix up the vertices and all the extra polygons that are created when a 3ds file is created. We're going to convert this to editable poly mode, enter vertex mode, hit Control A to get all the vertices. As you can already see, it's about 1,326. That's a lot when it should only be around 300. So once we got all those selected, we could just right click, go click weld, this little box right here, and what we want to do is set a welding radius of 0.01. That works about fine. See, there's a dramatic decrease in the vertices, and it welds all the extra ones that are created on top of each other. Once we got that, we go back, reset our X form. This is vital. Collapse that, center the pivot point, and land to the world, and that should be it for the mesh for now. So we can unhide everything, and then hide the arm set. Now we're going to have to clean up the bones. As I explained earlier, when you export a 3ds file, it creates a ton of extra vertices and faces on the files. It did the same thing to these bones, but we don't have to clean them up because Red Faction doesn't actually render these bones. They're just there for reference. And I don't really have the patience with that kind of crap right now, so we're just going to go ahead and rename them. First we're going to start off fixing up the right hand by renaming it properly. So we're going to go ahead and start doing that. Arm lower, hand. Actually, I think this would be easier if we just go on a top view and select them that way. Hand, thumb 1, and thumb 2. Pinky 1, Pinky 2, Pinky 3, ring, oops, typo, L1, copy. I'm just going to go ahead and do this same thing to all the rest of the bones so we get properly named, because exporting to 3ds format screws everything up. Make sure we got the thumb. Okay. Thank God that it preserved the pivot points of the objects, so they rotate properly, and it also preserved the links, which is a good thing as well. The root is fine. Now we're going to go ahead and start renaming the left arm. 0.01, 0.02, 0.03. Okay, now we got everything renamed, and it should function properly. Let's hope so. Okay, good. Now we need to recreate the biped since it got all jacked up on exporting. So we're going to have to create a new biped by coming here to the create panel and then the utilities or systems panel. Create a biped. It needs to be a height of 90 or around 90. So create the biped. We'll choose it or choose any part of it. Actually, doesn't really matter. Come to the motion tab. We need to turn this figure mode on, otherwise it won't work properly. This is extremely vital when we're setting up the biped. So we turn on figure mode. We go to structure. We give it everything it needs. And we take away the things that it definitely doesn't need. It doesn't need spine links, no neck links, leg links. Let's see, 5 fingers, finger links, 3 finger links, no toes, toe links 0, and let's see, height. We need to change that to 90. Okay, once we got this set up, we could move it into place where we need it. Oh, that's right. You cannot move the biped if you select the pelvis. You need to actually select the root. So we hide that, and this is a root right here. We can move it like this. Let's see if we could reset it to the center of the world. Not that. Okay, that's weird. Resetting these spinners don't even work. So we're just going to have to get it as close as possible. That's about right. And then we just move it down further so the shoulders sort of meet up with our arms. Right around there. And then I'll line it up perfectly. There we go. Now we're going to grab this one arm. I suggest you take the left one and work along this with me. And we'll try to straighten this out as straight as possible. And then we'll move this into place right around here. The pivot points for these arms must match up to the structure of the bones or the mesh, or very close. It doesn't need to be perfect, but it needs to be pretty close. As you can see right here, it's already too long, and it doesn't quite match up. The pivot points need to be close, but not perfect. So, you can click right here. See the pivot point is right here, right around here. And we could click this object. See, it's pretty close, but it's not exact, and that's fine. We'll click the arm set mesh and just move that out of the way for now, so it's not in the way. Right here. Okay, and then the pivot point for this one is right here, but the pivot point for this is a little too far off. So we come here and we scale this larger, so it's a little bit more exact. Let's go into side mode, make sure it's straightened out. Actually, this doesn't line up, so we're going to have to scale this too. Scale this a little shorter like that, and a little longer, so get the fingers a little closer to where we want them to be. And now we got to scale each finger to fit. Oh, what the hell did I just do? Okay. So I move these into place, scale them properly. The size of this end bone doesn't matter because this isn't linked to anything else and there's no pivot point on this end. So we're just going to scale it anyway because I want it to be clean. And rotate it so it's properly in place. Do this to the same, these other ones too. That looks about right. Now we got them in position in the top view. Oh shit. Undo that view change. We got them in position on the top viewport. Now we got to line them up down here. Oh, they already look to be in place. Let's move them up and down a little bit just to make sure. You might want to center them a little bit more, so it doesn't look too pretty. There we go. Okay, now for the thumb is a little bit different. This is a whole separate object and it's positioned differently. First we got to rotate it. Check for the rotation, okay. Now we're going to have to align it to this one right here, the real thumb bone. So we come over here to align mode, just select all these, tick all these boxes right here, turn pivot point, and all rotation, and press apply. Okay. Now what we want to do is rotate this and move it in position so it's more closely, accurately resembles the bone structure right here. Just tilt it a little bit. And I'm not entirely sure, but it looks like it might be too short. It is too short. So we're going to have to select this bone up here and scale it a little bit larger. Just scale this and this, doesn't really matter, just turn it real short. Get that out of the way. You can hide that bone temporarily and make sure. And that looks about proper for now. Okay, that looks, I think we're about done setting up the biped for our arm. Now, a cool feature of the biped, at least, is we get to duplicate the posture of one side to the other side so we don't have to do the whole other arm. Come right here down to the keyframing tab and then we'll click right here twice to select the whole root so it's got everything all the way up to the tip, and then we just hit this button right here to copy the posture and then we paste it to the opposite side. It's this button right here. If you hold the mouse over it, it'll tell you what it's for. And then once we got that, boom, look at instant placement. Now, when I duplicated this arm to the other side, it isn't exact spacing distance from the center of the world, so it's off a little bit. You can already see right here, so we're gonna have to move it back a little bit. Maybe, maybe not. Looks right dead on almost. Go right there for safe. Just to be safe. And that's about it for setting up the biped. Do not exit figure mode until you are completely done with the model. Let's move this over here. And let's see, I think that's about it for setting up the biped. If you had to do this in version 4.0, if you had to use the 3ds file. And then once you're done, make sure you save it, because the file I included is not compatible with version 4.0. Let me just save this. Make sure you save it as 4.0 so you know that's for your version, and hit save. And that should be it for setting up the biped. Unless I'm forgetting something, I hope not. Yeah, that seems to be about it. Alright, this is the process where we actually get our weapon or our other second model and get it ready for the arm set, so we can start actually using it as a weapon that the arms will be holding. So we'll open up your arm setup final file. It should have the biped and everything, the biped and the camera setup. If you don't have the camera, or if you're using 4.0, the camera, just create a camera and point it in the direction the biped is facing, and then the lens will be, or the field of view will actually be 45 degrees, and I think that's about it. I don't think there should be anything else related to that. Okay, now we need to actually import our model. So we'll go to merge. If you save the last file, the Beretta fixed file, we're going to actually start moving it into our scene. So what we want to do is get the gun mesh, press OK, and there we go. You see the Beretta. As it stands right now, it's really big and we don't want it like that. So we're going to have to rotate it 90 degrees to the side. Make sure you have angle snap on it here, so it rotates in 5-degree increments. And we'll rotate it like this. And then we'll move it onto the hand that'll be holding it, the right hand. Move it down a little bit, and then we'll start scaling it carefully so we get a decent match in size. Make sure when you're scaling it, you either hold, you scale right here in this little area. There's a little gold triangle from here, here, and here. Make sure it's not like this. You got to scale it this way, so it's scaling on all 3 axes. So once we do that, we can scale and move. Then you go into this viewport, frame it, and we could just butt it right up against the hand so we can keep testing the size and the way it looks. Just the most important part is that we get it lined up with the finger and the size a little bit proportional the way it's supposed to be. I think that might be pretty good. It might be a little too small. Let me size it up again. Getting the scale is kind of difficult, so tedious, but a little patience and you'll be able to get it. Clipping is okay because you won't be seeing it clipping into the mesh, but try to get it as little as possible for the sake of being professional and keeping it clean. And that looks like it's about right. Once we got that, we could go into move mode, right click all these spinners so it sets it to the center of the world, and then we'll go to the rotation and then we'll center that so it's like that. And then we'll move this in front of the mesh of the hands. Now what we need to do, the next step, is we need to start creating the bones for the gun like we did with the arm. You guys didn't actually do this yourself, but I'll show you. This is the same process I did for creating the bones for the arm. What we do is we select our mesh that we're working with, you go into element mode, and then we start selecting different elements of the gun. For the arm specifically, I used polygon mode and selected them in groups, polygons, and then disconnected them. So we go into element mode, we'll create the bone for the clip, we'll go to detach, and we'll name it BDBN gun clip. I'll copy this. And we want to detach it as a clone. Make sure this is ticked. This is vital. Just press OK. Next, we'll select the whole body of the gun and detach that. Gun body. Press OK. And we'll do the same thing with the silencer. Detach it. Gun top. Or not top, silencer. What the hell am I thinking? Press OK. And then we'll come over here and get the hammer part. Detach that. Hammer. Okay. Okay, now we got all the bones that we need. We can hide the actual gun mesh now. We can hide selected, and then we'll get all the bones. Since the bones are kind of hard to discern from the actual mesh, I think it's best to remove the material. So what we can do to remove the material is open up the material editor, click this get material. Once we got that open, we can select all these pieces, and we could get this none right here and drag it over, and just press assign to selection, and that should remove the material off these pieces. Now, the second thing we need to do is we need to reset the X form of all these objects. So just select all four pieces of the gun, reset selected, and then we collapse them. Collapse all. And then now we need to reset the pivot point to the center of these objects and align them to the world in case if there was weird orientation when these files are created. Okay, once we got that, we need to start linking them together. And linking is very specific in the way it needs to be done. There are proper ways, one proper way to do it, and anything else will probably mess it up. So we need to find the link button. We link the child to its parent. The child will always follow the parent, and the parent cannot follow the child. Say for instance, we want all these pieces of the gun to rotate around the body. The body right now is independent. It has no children. So we're going to have to link this to this. Now, as it stands, we can rotate this and the silencer will follow. If we did it the other way around, whoops, break the selection. If we linked the gun to the silencer, we can rotate the gun and the silencer will not follow. However, if we rotate the silencer, the gun will follow. We don't want it like this. This is bad. So we'll link it the proper way. The easiest, fastest way is to get everything that you know will follow one particular bone, and just select all of them, click and hold any one of them, and just click and hold and wait until these three lines, wait for this little box to appear, and just let go. Now when we rotate this, you get all the pieces following just the way we want, and that's setting up bones. Now there's an issue with multiple root bones for the gun, or for for the bone setup, and that we can't have that, so we're gonna have to clean this up. What we need to do is hide everything that's getting in the way. We need to hide the biped, so let's hide that, hide selection. We'll hide the mesh, this arm set, hide selection, and now we need to link this gun to this bone, the whole bone that's going to be influencing it the most. It is vital that this gun is the child of this hand, because otherwise it will be following. If you were to link it to the root bone, it wouldn't follow this hand specifically, and that's what we want. We're just going to link this gun to the hand, so that way, if we were to imagine that the hand was actually holding the gun right now, it would follow along and do whatever the hell it is that you're doing with the hand. And right now we can unhide all. We can select the old biped and hide that. And that's about it for setting up the bone structure for pretty much any object you might want to use. And let's see, am I forgetting anything? We set the X form. We got the gun, the bone set up, linked it. Yep, that's everything we need to do for now. We got the bone set up properly, we got the structure of the hand, all the hands, both arms, we cleaned up the meshes, and that's about it. Alright, here we go. This is the part where we get our gun and attach it to the arm set and get it ready to use for right action bone. First things first, I hope you saved the last file that was in the previous video, because I didn't tell you to. I just named mine FP Beretta default.max, and let's see what we got here. The first thing we need to do is select all the bones. Just double click right here on the root, so it selects everything, all its children, and then we type in all bones, and right here in this little dialog box, and hit enter. This is a group selection window. We assign objects to groups, and we can easily select them and manipulate them. So when I want to later on select all my bones, I can easily do that and hide them. Once you do that, you just got the arm mesh and the gun mesh. We want to attach these two objects so they are one whole object. So you go right here, and then there's an attach button. In mine, take heed that this linking is not the same as attaching. Attaching creates it as one whole object. This just links to two separate objects. They'll still be their own object, and they'll follow each other around, but this creates one whole object. We want to do that with the gun mesh. So we select the gun mesh, and then this dialog that pops up is very important. We want to select match material IDs to material, and we also want to condense materials and IDs, and hit OK. Once you got that, you can open up the material editor. You'll also notice that the wireframe color of the gun mesh has changed to the same as the arm itself. That's indicating that it's one whole object, and the name is also arm set. Once we got that, open up the material editor, and we want to use our eyedropper and select our arm, or the gun. It doesn't really matter, it's one whole object anyways. Now what we are seeing here is a combination of all the materials that this gun uses, or that this mesh uses. We got the three textures for the arm, this one, and this one for the glove, and then we got the gun, and then we got the texture for the gun, which is the fourth material ID. If you got any other materials that your mesh is not using, but it's there anyway, it's best off to delete those and then find the polygons that material was using and remove them. But that's not the case right now, so we're just going to close it, just because everything seems to be in order. Once we got that, this next step is very important. It is vital that it's done in this sequence. First, we gotta reset the pivot point, center the object to pivot point, and then align it to world in case if it's off. Next, we need to reset the X form. It's vital that we reset the pivot point and then do the X form. If you do it the other way, it'll get all jacked up and won't work properly. And once we do that, collapse all, and that should be it. Now next we want to, let's hide this crap, get this out of the way, hide selection. And then now we want to bring out all the bones. Hit yes, and it looks to be ready. Let's make sure the bones are unhidden. Where the hell are the gun bones? Crap. Okay, I just made a mistake with not assigning the gun bones to the all bones, which I should have. So what we want to do is just hide the biped, select that from the group selection, and then we'll select all these, double click again. This time you should see it select all the separate pieces. Just click up here once, or double click so it gets named, just enter again. Now, when we got this, we'll select all the bones and then we can hide them and manipulate them. You can also do that to the biped, hide selection. And that seems to be about it for this part. The next part will be about actually weighting the vertices to the bones and assigning vertex weights and getting the mesh working the way we want so we could actually move it around. Alright, we're almost there. This time I saved the file. I saved it as copy. I saved it FP Beretta default 2, so it's a separate file in case we need to go back. And this is the part where we actually apply reflection bone to the mesh and start assigning bones and vertex weights. Now if you followed all the other videos, you should have up to this point the mesh, the arm mesh with the gun, and everything is pretty much ready to go. The bones, the biped, the camera, the material, which should be fine, and that's pretty much all there is to be ready for reflection bones. So once we got that, select the arm set or the arm mesh and we apply reflection bone to it. Now we got to make sure all the bones are unhidden before we assign them, because if they're hidden it won't see it. So we just select all bones, and yes, all the bones are unhidden. We'll go back to the arm set and we'll click add bones. And we select everything that says BDBN in it. It's an easy way of identifying the bones. Once you got that, you hit add. If you don't get any pop-ups or any errors at all, you should be fine. All these bones should be listed down here. Before we go any further, we should set these spinners down to 0, ramp in, ramp out, and put the frame rate up to 30. It's best to do this now, because later on when you're exporting different animations, it's going to be a pain in the ass to keep changing these down to 0 and down to 30. Alright, now once you got that, you expand this reflection bone modifier by clicking this little plus sign and then click on the Vertex Mode. You'll see that all the vertices or vertices on the mesh will light up. At this point, it's okay to hide all the bones. So I could go up here, press all bones, and then hide them. Now all we got is just the mesh. You want to go back into Vertex Mode, and then we'll start assigning the vertices to bones. We'll start off with the easy thing to do, the gun. Okay, so we'll select all the vertices on the silencer and then assign them to the silencer bone. We'll give it 100% influence over these vertices selected. That means if I were to get the silencer bone and move it around, this mesh, these vertices selected on this mesh will follow it. And we'll do the same thing right here with the hammer. When you select the second part and then one of these go blank, like this, like when I was coming from the silencer, it'll say 100 right here, and then if I just click drag select and then this turns blank, you're gonna have to click away and then reselect. And then we'll assign this to the hammer, 100%, click away, deselect, and then we'll select the entire gun body, and we'll assign it to gun body, enter, and we'll do the same thing with the clip. And that should be it for the gun. Now we get to do the arms. These are a lot more complicated and difficult than the gun, because the gun is easy. It's just mechanical parts and you just gotta assign them to 100. These are more organic, and getting an organic look is obviously a lot harder. We'll start off by selecting the right arm. We're gonna go scroll down until we find the first bone for the right arm, and we want to assign these to selection right here, 100. You could also go zoom out. We could check our selection. Make sure it's right. Now these right here, these are a little bit different. Since they're bridging in between this forearm and the upper arm, we could have a little bit more, have it a little bit smoother, have a smoother transfer. So since this is closer to the upper arm than it is to the forearm, we could put the upper influence to about 75% and the lower arm to about 25%. Oh yeah, if you press these buttons right here, these are all buttons, you can press these, and then when you press these, it'll show you what its influences are. Right here, you can barely see it, but there's little plus signs appearing on these vertexes. It's easy. It's an alternative instead of pressing enter when you input the numbers. Okay, so we got these set to 75 and 25. Oh yeah, also note that these numbers, the sum of all these numbers cannot equal over to 100 for any single vertex, because if it goes over 100, you'll get some serious problems when you're in game. You won't get any error as you export it, but when you get it in game, you'll definitely see some problems. Now next, we can select these. Make sure selection, and then we can continue selecting these. And deselect that. We get to zoom around, check our selection, make sure it's right. And then we don't want this hand bone to be affected. We don't want these vertices on the hand to be affected by the forearm bone, so we're going to deselect them. And just check your selection and make sure you got everything selected that you need. Make sure nothing's missing. Once we got that, we could assign all these 100% to the lower arm. You could take this button just in case so we know what we were working on. Now we get to assign vertices to the hand. This is a lot more difficult and, well, it's more time consuming, as working on the fingers is too. So we could come right here, select all these for the hand, and then start selecting the actual vertices on the hand itself. You might have to manually select these down below. Make sure selection is proper. Make sure to get anything from the arm. And then we want to select all these bottom ones down here. Just double check it. Looks to be in order. Once you got that, you gotta assign that to the right hand. Enter, and then that should be good to go. Now let's get the second hardest part out of the way, which is the thumb. I think it's a better idea to have this selected so we can see what vertices we shouldn't touch. We'll start by selecting these four. Connect, use this one. I assign it to the hand. And then we want to select these two right here. Maybe these two. Looks about right. And we'll assign these bones to the thumb, 01. And this next one, we just get these last remaining vertices and just assign that to the second bone, thumb 02. Looks to be in order. Now this next part is important. What we want to do is select all these right here on the hand. And set 50% influence for each of these to the hand. What the hell am I thinking? The right hand, duh. Now we can start working on the fingers. I think it might be a better idea to do this in the top viewport. Let's start with the pointer finger. Okay, first we'll select these two. What the hell? Set that to 50, not 100. Okay. We'll select this vertex and this one. Let's zoom in a little bit closer so you can see. So these ones right here. And set these to 50 for the first point finger. Our point, 50. And then now we could come down here and select these four right here. If we were to zoom in right here, we could see what vertices we got selected. These four. You go ahead and give these 100% influence, or the point finger 100% influence over these. And then for this one, we can select this row, and then this row, these two rows. Assign to point 02. And then these ones finally to point 03. And then if we click these, you can see the influence for each one. Next, we're going to do the middle finger. 50% because this is the first row. We want a smooth transition from the hand to the finger. And then we select these two, or these four. Assign this to the middle, 01, 100%. Click this. Select these. Middle 02. And then right here, middle 03. And then the same thing for the next two fingers. I think it might be a good idea to do all these first so they don't get in the way later. Ring 02. Or ring 01 actually. It looks like the pinky is built a lot differently than the rest of the fingers. You can zoom under here and select these two. The pinky 02. And then select these ones. And pinky 03. And let's see, we got the whole right arm finished, I hope. Hopefully with no errors. So we'll save it. Do a save as. Bretta default 3. Save. We have to reopen up the file, otherwise it won't work properly. So open up. We'll freeze this. I'll hide all the bones. Yes. And we can start tweaking around the bones and see how the arm reacts to it. Turn off angle snapping. You can see that the gun rotates properly as well. You could check the rotation for this. It is a good idea to have this on local. And then we'll start tweaking with the fingers. Make sure those work. The thumb is also important. So I could check the thumb. Check the pinky. And that's what I think of all of you. Bam! I'm just kidding. It looks like it's working right, so we'll go ahead and select all the bones. Hide selection. Unfreeze the mesh. and we can see that the mesh is bending properly the way it should. Now it looks like there's a little bit of an anomaly right here because of the way the mesh is built. But chances are you won't have Parker giving people the finger as a weapon in the game, so I don't think that'll be a good idea. And you can see that the gun is actually following the rotation of the bones on the arm. We could also fix that by now, but right now let's just open up our default file. Don't save it. That's just testing it. And then now we could start fixing the gun. Oh no, wait, we should actually finish the other arm before we do that. And then finishing this arm will basically follow the same principles as this one, getting all the vertices to match up the way we want. And that's about it for setting up and using Reflection Bone to do all the work for you. Alright, end is in sight. We got, hopefully you guys did the left arm on your own. I didn't show that in another video because that would have taken up entirely too much time. So here we are left with the complete arm and the gun. Now this part we're going to export it and get it ready for the game. We're also going to set it up in its default position, which is going to be the position that the gun will always snap back to after every animation, and that is very important as well. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to export this. We're going to make sure we have the mesh selected, so that's the only way we can get to this window, and we're going to press export. And right now we don't have any dummies or collision spheres, so just press select. We'll add that after we're done. I'll export it directly to C, RF Toolkit, and C Crunch. We'll name this Tut Beretta BCM. Save. And I think that should be it for now. Right now we're also going to have to freeze this. Freeze the arm set. So all we have is the bones. I have to find the left view. And before, I remember I had you guys dismantle the pistol. By now, the pieces should be able to move back together. So let's move the pistol and back and everything back into place where it belongs. This is the way it's supposed to be. And move the silencer right here. And there we go, there's the pistol. Just the way we wanted it. Now, like before, we'll have to rotate the pistol and put it in position. Make sure angle snapping is on. Where is it? Angle snapping. Rotate it 90 degrees this way. And 90 degrees this way. And we'll move it onto the hand. Just like before, we're going to move the pistol into place, but this time it's the actual mesh that we're moving with the bones. Alright. Everything seems to be in order. Now, if we're going to use the biped, which I suggest we should, we're going to have to unhide it. Okay. This next part's going to be kind of tedious, but we should I think everyone who wants to use a biped to make animation easier should do this. We'll hide the bones for the gun. Hide selection. And then we'll start linking up the bones to the biped. We'll hide these so they don't get in the way. Okay, the way this will work is we have to link the the bones to the biped. These bones will have to be children of the biped. So that way when we move the biped, we move the bones. So basically we're just going to be linking green to blue. And I need to get these damn dummies out of the way. So hang on a second. Untick geometry, select all these, and hide. Get our linking tool. We'll click and hold. And we're going to do this for all the bones on the hand. Green to blue. Make sure it's the hand bone. We need to get the thumb. And that's it for the biped setup. Okay. Now we should hide all the bones. Turn this off. All bones. Yes. Instead of clicking all bones, we should just select bones, because these are just the hand bones. We still need the bones for the pistol. So you just hide selection. And this is what we'll be using to animate. You'll also notice now if we move these around, it will still move around as expected. As soon as you got this done, do a file, save as, with the underscore and bip at the end. This is only for the people that want to use bipeds. You could animate properly. You could still animate fully without biped, but it's a bit more tedious, and you have to move all the bones manually. This just makes it a little easier. But I personally, I don't like this thing because it always crashes on me when I try to use it. So, anyways, with that out of the way, we'll start moving these bones into position, like it's actually holding the pistol. Thumb doesn't need any much modifying. Make sure we turn this on local. And then we'll move the rest of the fingers into position. And that's what we should have so far. It's kind of a big Beretta. I should have resized it a little bit, but that's fine. Once we got that, we'll rotate this with angle snap 90 degrees. And then we'll rotate it 90 degrees like this. Now this is where the camera comes into play. We'll have to unhide the camera. Go right here to this little TV set that's called display, and we'll come down to unhide by name. Find the camera and hit unhide. Earlier I accidentally pressed a button. I realized it, pressed orthographic view. We don't want that on. I'll show you. For right now, we have to sacrifice one of our viewports. We'll sacrifice the front one. Put it on camera 1. As you see, this is the orthographic view. It's very flat. We want it to have perspective, so we'll just take that out. We can see the pistol in this view already, but it's not in proper position. We're going to have to fix that. So let's rotate these bones into place a little bit. We'll have to tilt it a little bit towards the center of the screen because it just doesn't look right. We can't really move these arms to positions, so we're gonna have to improvise with what we have, the space that we have. You could also move the camera too, but it's better off leaving it where it's at. I'll have to rotate this just a little bit. And I'll have to bring this in a little bit because naturally from the first person perspective the guns are usually tilted towards the center of the screen. And the only thing that really matters is once on the screen. You don't see the arm all cocked off to the side like this improperly. But this is what we need to get it looking properly, so this is what we're going to do. Let's move it. We'll try to get a little bit of the forearm into the screen. Let's see how that looks. It looks kind of sloppy. We'll have to turn on smooth and highlight so I can see what's going on. Takes a little bit of positioning. That looks alright. Now, we need to get the second hand. We'll get the forearm and rotate it 180 degrees so it's laying upside down. Angle snap so you can see what we're doing. Rotate this 90 degrees. I think I just totally jacked up the arm. Hang on, let me undo a few steps. Once we got it like that, we'll rotate the forearm like this. Now we'll move the hand under the gun. since we're also using limited space, it's going to be kind of difficult to get this look properly. As a last resort, we could always unhide the biped and move this shoulder pivot point into position so this arm has a little bit more space so we can work with. This is why it is vital to leave it in what's it called? In this mode right here, in figure mode. It's vital that we leave it in figure mode until this point, because if we were to turn it off, we wouldn't be able to move the shoulder position. Oops, we don't want to touch those bones. Let's hide all the bones again. And then hide all the biped fingertips. Turn off angle snapping for more precise movements. Again, the arms could be cocked off to the side and, in an unrealistic position, only because the only thing that matters is what's shown on the screen. Move the thumbs a little bit. Moving these fingers is not necessary, but for the sake of a better animation, with that little anomalies, we'll put this in a realistic position, or semi-realistic. And this will be the default position for the pistol. We should probably forcibly move these a little bit so you can get a better projection on the camera. I want to move this out like there. We could also adjust it right here in this camera view too, in case we don't really like the way it's pointed. And then all we got to do is just move this over a little bit to compensate. But I guess that was a little very significant movement, so I don't really have to tweak it around. Hide the biped again and all this crap. And this will be the default position of the pistol. It looks alright. I think it might be off a little bit, but that's kind of good. Like it turned out, maybe tilted up just a little bit. And I think I like that result. Finally, we'll have to turn off figure mode when we want to animate, but before we do that, we're going to have to save it again. Final bit 2. Just in case we have to go back. That's the only reason why we save so many different copies. And this is the first person arm set for now. We're going to have to add dummies later on, but I usually don't do that until the end. But for the sake of doing it, just so you guys know, I'm going to go ahead and import a few dummies from previous projects that I've done. Scenes, AK-47. Oops, have to go to merge. You guys won't actually be doing this step. You could create the dummies. I'll show you how. But I'm just doing this because I don't remember the names of them. Here they are. Here are the dummies that we need. The muzzle and the shell eject. These are 2 extra dummies for the clip. I didn't add those until I needed to animate. So once we got these dummies, these are the dummies required. Let's unfreeze all. And freeze this. And then we'll move these dummies into position. The muzzle flash will move right here. This position looks a little off. The axis that this muzzle flash is facing is important. The X-axis needs to be facing towards the player, otherwise you will not see a muzzle flash at all. Just go ahead and move this right here, rotate it a little bit, and that's fine. And then the shell eject, we can move that over here. I'm not entirely sure, but I think the X-axis is the axis that the bullet shells are ejected from. So I'll go ahead and move that around here where the hammer lets the bullet out. It's fine, doesn't need to be perfect. Once we got the dummies in place, we can link them. We have to link them if we want it to work properly. Press this link button, and we could also press this select by name to make it a lot easier, because I don't want to accidentally select the mesh or anything. So select and link, select by name, tick on geometry, and you want to pick the BN gun body and hit link. And that should link the dummies to the pistol. Alright, that seems to be in working order. And now we got our gun. It's pretty much complete by now. We can unfreeze all. We can re-export the model. This time select both of these dummies. Select. And then we'll re-export the VCM to Beretta and hit save. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's pretty much all there is to setting this up. Let's freeze this again. And then next we can start on the animations. But first we're going to process this. Actually, I think we're done here. So let me go to my C drive. We'll go to my RF toolkit, C crunch folder, and here is the VCM file. We still need to crunch this with C crunch, so let me edit my batch file. We'll name this tut beretta.vcm. Save it and exit. Oh, by the way, to make a batch file, all you need to do is just simply create a text file, text document, and just name it whatever.bat. Hit yes if that dialog pops up. And then to edit it, all you gotta do is just right click and edit, and it'll open it up in Notepad where you can. And to make this, all we gotta do is just hit match, and it will process the Beretta, and we'll get the file that we need. We can get rid of this, we don't need this. We'll go to our Red Faction directory, go to mods. I don't have a mod directory set up for this yet, so we'll create a new one. Test Beretta, and we'll move our file in here. And that is the first step of getting our gun in the game. We still have a lot to do in 3ds Max though. And that's it for setting up the gun, putting it in its default position, and getting ready to animate. This is the last step that you'll be using any Vertex waiting for from here on out. The only thing you can do is animate. So if you screwed up anywhere down the line and something's not working right, you gotta go all the way back to where you messed up. And that should be it. Alright, in this video, this isn't exactly directly related to Red Faction, but the information provided in this video is very important on animating your weapon or whatever it is, whatever else it is that you're animating. Okay, in the world of animation in 3ds Max, we use a system called keyframe animation. In every motion, there are key poses that a character must go through to perform that animation. And between each pose, or every major pose that we define, is basically a key position, or the key pose. The first key pose in this animation is a guy standing straight up. He's about to kick the green guy in the nuts, but he doesn't know that yet. Basically a kicking motion is defined by two key poses. One with the leg extended back like this. He's getting ready to kick. This is the second key pose of our kicking animation. Here's the first key pose. The purpose of keyframe animation is to let the computer do all the work in between the keyframe. I have not defined anything in between the space. I let the computer strictly handle all this. I moved him like this, and then the second keyframe, or the last keyframe position of the kicking motion, would be him extending his leg outward, which is defined right here. This is the last and final key position of kicking animation. We notice that I have also done nothing in between right here, and I let the computer take care of all the work. So say for instance you wanted to do a reload animation. The first key pose would be the pistol in its default position, as always. The second key pose would be the pistol and the clip got tongue-tied. The clip will be out of the gun and off the screen because the clip will have been ejected out of the gun. And if you want to get a little bit more fancy with your animations or whatever, you could have him cock back the hammer and click the little clip release button on the side of the gun before that happens. Well, that's a lot more intricate and in-depth of an animation than simply letting it drop. The quality of an animation is also defined on how much time you spend on it, making sure all the motions look realistic and not fake and retarded. The less time you spend on an animation, probably more likely, the less nice it's going to look, and it's going to look more like trash than animation. And this is my small little animation I've done in my free time because I've been bored. And we'll go ahead and play this back real quick at the speed it's supposed to be played at. And I'll go ahead and play it back. It never gets old. And that's it about the explanation on keyframe. Alright, here we are back in 3ds Max 5 with our gun model, and hopefully with knowing a little bit more about animation from the previous video, animating this will be a lot easier. First things first, we need to resave this. Let's create a new folder and name it Tut Beretta. Now we want to name this file Tut Beretta, or FP Beretta Idle, because this is the animation we're going to work on. And save it. And right now, at this point, I think it might be best to finally take the biped out of figure mode. If you take this off, you cannot enable it later on. It will cause problems. So, just a little food for thought. make sure you got everything completely done the way you want before you start on this and turn this off, because once you turn this off, it's the point of no return, and I think we passed that point, so we turn it off. Okay, now in our idle animation, we want the gun to sway up and down just a little bit, so that's exactly what we're going to do. With our biped, that'll be incredibly easy because there's not much to it. All you gotta do is just select these two hands and, well, just move it up and down. Before we do that, we've got to either turn auto key on, or we could set the keyframe manually. Since we're using the biped and setting keyframe animation positions for bipeds is not conventional to setting them with normal objects, it has its own little keyframe icon. That's different. So what we're going to do, we're going to turn auto key on it. Everything we do from this point on, the computer will remember it. So what first thing we want to do is we want to set the default position for our gun. Let's get rid of these so these aren't in the way anymore. So we might want to freeze these too. Okay. The first thing we want to do is, well, we need to define our time frame, or how much time we're going to use. No, I think we should do that last. Okay, well, we'll select the hands, and then we'll put them in our default position. This is our default position. We don't want anything to change from here. So what we'll do is we'll select all of it. We'll right-click on this timer, the spinner right here, and click it. We want to set a position and a rotation. We do not want to set a scale. That will take up extra memory, and that's a waste. Alright, okay. I think for the biped we might have to set our own keys. Oh, I guess that works. But for the pistol, those keys are definitely set, as you can see right here. We'll move back to frame 0. Okay, this is the first key pose as we went through earlier. You can see that it's a key pose because, well, everything has a bounding box around it. If we move it further down the line, let's say over 40 frames, we want the hand to move down a little bit. This is where our camera view comes into play. You can see just exactly how much our pistol will move downward. I think that will be about good. Just a little bit too much and it will look over exaggerated, too little and it won't look good enough. Now, simply putting this back into its default position, just by moving it back, will be difficult because we can't really quite get it back into the same exact spot without knowing exactly how many units we moved it. So the easy thing is we could select this keyframe right here, hold shift, and drag it over here. And then when you let go, it'll duplicate it. And then now when we move the slider, we can see the change. You could hold Control and Alt and then use the right mouse button and click down here on this timeline, and we could change the time instantly. And then now we can see this is our animation, our idle animation. And by looking at it, by eyeballing it, you can tell that when it gets to the top, it's sort of, it looks like it's bouncing down more than it's doing a smooth transition. So to fix this, what we can do is select both of these hands. We go to the motion tab, this little thing right here. It's been selected this whole time for me. And we could go to animation properties, I think. That's not it. Let's see. I think we only could do it one at a time. Here we go. In the key information tab, we want to ease to and from the first and the last keyframe. These are both in the same position, but they do not transition smoothly. It feels more like a poke at the top. So to fix this, we could do ease. Let's try this. Do 25, ease to. Click this right here. And do an ease from. And do the same thing down here. Ease from. and then an ease 2. Let's see how that looks. I think it's probably going to look worse because I probably got it backwards. Oh no, it looks like I got it dead on. And look at that's a pretty good idle animation. I like it. So once that animation is done in all 80 frames, we'll move this back to slider 1, and then we'll save this. Save. This is our new idle animation. And we could come in here and unfreeze all, select this, minimize this mesh parameters, and then we want to put the ramp in and ramp out to about 2. This is actually exporting the animation. This is very important. We have, after we do our animation and we're all done with it and the editor and everything, we could go to export. That's mesh parameters. Cancel. Stop. Come right here to MVF parameters and hit export. We'll go to our CRF toolkit, the MVF reduce folder. This is where all the animations go. We'll name this Tubretta idle, and then we'll hit save. Should take a little bit, and that's it. We could go over here to, where is it? The Crunch folder and MVF reduce folder, and we can see there's our animation. It is kind of big right now. That's okay, because later on we'll be compressing it. But for the hell of it, we could edit this. This is my settings for the make.bat. It is crucial that you have something that looks very similar to this, or values that are similar to this, and these 2 flags, so we get everything in the folder. And then when we're done, we could just simply click this and it will convert this animation to something usable. Now I got a Tubretta idle RFA, or reflection animation, something that we can use. And we can move this over to our mod folder. And now we got our V3C. This is our model, and this is our animation. We'll go ahead and go through the rest of the animations, or a few others, for the sake of mercy. Once we got this idle animation done, which I suggest doing the idle animation always first, so we have a base to go back to, something that's easy to fetch our default position off of. We freeze this, save it, and then do a save as, and then we'll name this reload. And then we'll save it. Now this, we could clear out the keyframe in the middle and the 2 idle ones. Just make sure it's on frame 0 before we start moving keyframes. I suggest you start from here, and then after moving that one, you can select these and get them out. Now it's back to it's being fairly static again. It's not moving. And then now we're going to start our reload animation. We could turn on auto key mode. Auto key mode. And let's say around 12 frames. You could have a hand cock back. Undo that. Let me turn this on local mode. Okay, we'll have the hand cocked back just a little bit. We could use the camera 1 as a reference. Oh shit. I don't want to move it. Moving the camera is bad. Don't ever move the camera. We'll have it reload like this, and we could have the hand cocked back a little bit more. We could also have it pull back. Turn this on local mode. Have it pull back like that. Maybe rotate a little bit more. And then we'll have this hand move off the screen. And basically we let the computer handle all the animation between, as you can see right here. And then maybe around frame 16 we'll have the hand come out like this. Maybe we could have the thumb twitch a little bit, make it look like it's hitting something. I forget the thumb can't rotate that way. So we could just extend it for, make it a little bit fancier, a little bit more realistic. And now we could get the clip to move out. So we could click the damn clip. And it is very important that we use local movement mode, so it moves on its own axis. And then we can make the clip move out from here. Now when we play that back, you should see there's a little bit of a problem. As you can see in this viewport, that, well, the clip just shoots out. Well, we wanted the clip to fall out all the way at frame 16. We don't want that. What we want it to do is we want it to shoot out in between, let's see, frame 12 and 16. It'll be at the bottom. So we go back to frame 12. For fast reference, we could right click this spinner, get the source time as 0 frame, where it's in the default position, which is inside the gun, and we want it to be a position keyframe because it's being moved, not rotated. I can press OK. Now it'll snap back to where it belongs, and, well, there you go. It looks like the pistol clip shoots out a little bit too fast, and plus it, clips out, it looks like. If you really want it to look a little bit more professional, you could change that. Maybe I should. Get that right here, and I could rotate it like that. Let's see what happens. And you also see the same thing happens with the rotation if we don't reset it. So we'll just grab a rotation key from the default position. And now you can see that it releases the clip properly. And I don't like how fast the clip shoots out, so we're going to expand the time frame which it shoots out. Let's move this from the start point of when it shoots out to around frame 6. Let's see how that looks. Well, now you can't even see it. So now maybe you could move this like this to frame 16. And there you go. Now the pistol clip slides out properly. Now what we want to do is we want to add a little hand motion to make it seem like the pistol clip weighs something. Like the hand moving, twitching a little bit when the clip slides out. Because right now when we play it back, I mean, the clip just slides out and the hand is just completely still. That looks fake as hell. So let's move to around frame 19, and we could, well, move the hand like that a little bit. And then maybe, let's see how many frames are in between here. About 3 frames. And then move another 3 frames. And then we'll fetch a source frame, or source time of about, what frame was that? Frame 16. Want to get a source time of 16. And this is a rotation key. I don't think it really matters when you set a key for a biped. I think it just sets its own little thing, so it doesn't really matter if you have these both ticked or not. And then we hit OK. And then, well, you do that. And then you got sort of semi-realistic motion. and then we basically have a little delay time in between when how long we want the gun to reload, empty space for time. We can move it right around, maybe to around 45, frame 45, and we could have the clip snap back and this snap into the gun. So we get rotation and a position from source frame or source time 0, default position where we want the clip back in the gun. Now if we play that back, yes, we're going to get the same problem because the clip is going to be out and then it's going to slide back in like that. But we can possibly use that to our advantage. We could bring the hand up with it, so we can sort of fake it. So we're going to fake it because I'm ghetto, I'm lazy. Okay, once we got that, we get the clip at its lowest point. Maybe you should move that up a little bit from this position. And maybe around frame 34, we could put this hand under the clip. It doesn't really matter what you do, like I've said before, the only thing that matters is what's on the screen at that time. We won't see this crap moving down here, so it doesn't matter. And this is how it is with everything, and everyone's like this. And it's the same thing with movies too. The only thing that matters is what the person sees. You can do anything you want out here as long as when it's on screen it looks proper. We don't have to really tweak the fingers for the hand. Maybe we should. Tweak these out a little bit. Now just continue to move these. This one's in a more open position. And then when the clip finally makes it back into the gun at frame 45, we will move the hand up with it. Right now I think it's best to turn on view mode for movement. And we'll see how that looks. You can see there's still a gap in between the pistol and when the hand actually gets into the gun, reaches the gun, the pistol clip reaches it a little bit before. Let's see the pistol clip so I can adjust the timing. Let's do some time adjustment, this rotation. We should copy a position key from, let's see, what frame is this? We've got to remember frame 34. Frame 26 to 34. We'll grab a position key. That's not right. Well, whatever. We could just still move it anyway. Put it in local mode. You can move it along these two axes. And just pretty much position it in the palm of the hand. it looks like the pistol clip is traveling a lot faster than the hand. We'll still know how to fix that. There are some certain animation techniques you can use to avoid this, and well, sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's slower, but for sake of saving time, and hopefully this will work, we can try to use a track editor to edit this. And from frame, we want the Z position, these two keyframes, to have a linear transition. So set tangents to linear. Uh-oh. Wow, that sucked hard. Well, let's start up 3ds Max again. Hopefully we could pick off where we left off. Alright, thank God it saved it. Alright, let's try to do this. I can try to do this as fast as I can. Even if it means breaking a few rules with the animation, will speed up the hand movement. This is for the sake of saving time. Typically I wouldn't do this. I would use the track editor and edit the tangents of the animation to match the speed of it. And I don't have keyframe animation. I don't have keyframe mode on. What the hell am I thinking? Turn on auto key. So right around here, we want the hand to catch up with the clip. That's when it starts appearing on screen. You don't want it clipping too much. And that looks beautiful. Now we need to do a little bit of after secondary motion of the pistol and the hand going, both the hands going up a little bit from the impact. We'll see, you use about 5 frames for that. So we'll move the thumb back. Turn on local turning mode. So I'm quickly speeding through this. By the way, if any of you want to use a track editor for animation version 5, the track editor sucks. It's supposed to have lines going in between the keys, and I think every version after 5 has it, except 5, because they suck. And then once we got that, we can come back here. We can select this whole hand, starting from here. I'm thinking, why don't I reduce the just by 1 frame? Move this back. Looks like it's 2 frames. And then from here, we could take a couple frame space, and we can move these hands up a little bit. I have to do it individually because moving them at the same time seems to cause problems. And as we can see, there's already a problem with the movement of this arm. It's not moving the way I would like it to. Need to freeze these gun bones. We want to get the frame from frame 22 and snap it to around 46. And then we'll get the motion animation for this hand to get similar around this frame 51. So we'll do the shift drag, and that's not working because it also stores the keys for the hands. So we'll just have to move it manually. Looks about right. Doesn't need to be perfect. And then with all this empty space we have in between here, we can, you know, twist the gun a little bit to make it a little bit more realistic. We could also space out these keyframes a little bit more because it uses a little bit too much time, or too little. And let's see how that looks. And then from here we could basically snap it back to its default position. We could select both arms. I don't know, I better save it before I do this. Cover 2.max. Go to 3ds Max 5, scenes. And the top Beretta, and I'll save it as a reload recover 2. And then we'll move the default keyframe to frame 60. And that doesn't want to work. So our alternative is we could right click it, set the source time to 0, and let the computer do it. It's a miracle, it worked. And that is keyframe animation for the reload. I think I like it, it looks pretty good. It needs to be sped up a little bit. Let's play it back and check our results. And to make it a little bit more realistic, you got a little after motion. The easiest way to do this is to find this frame. Let's move ahead 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 frames. Right click, get a source time of 0, and then in between here you can add a little bit of motion. The computer automatically does it from the tangents, the way it places them. I can add a little bit of motion to it. You can do this to view mode. Bring it down. Bring this down a little bit. And let's see how that looks. That looks beautiful. Now we can select all of it, find the last frame, 66, use a Control-Alt, right-click, and we can move it and change the last frame and time to 66. And then we can save this file, save as, reload. Yeah. I want to replace the file. Let's do unfreeze all, select the mesh, minimize that, ramp in and out, 2 is fine, frame rate 30, export, C, RF toolkit, and VF reduce, tut, Beretta reload. And save it. This is what it looks like. Off the screen you could pretty much tell that, well, it looks ugly as hell, but when it's on screen it looks good. Actually, you might need to fix that and re-export. I don't like the way that turned out right here. This is why it is important to let's freeze this. Select this pistol clip. Just move this hand back under the clip. This is just basically finalization. And then at frame 40 we want the clip to be back in the gun. I'm going to have to shorten the time for this. That might look good. Let's see what happens. Brilliant. Save it again. Unfreeze all. Re-export the animation. Try to reload. Replace it. And there we go. That is reloading animation. I think the hardest, but the most fun for our pistol. No, wait, we're not done yet. We still need to do one last thing. It's going to be quick though. The hammer doesn't come back when we load it. We have a test starting keyframe. Let's move that to frame 66. Or I think the faster way, more safer way to do that is move it to frame 66. Right click, source time 0, rotation. And then we can move the hammer back, put it on local, put movement. That's about far enough. We don't want it to slowly slide back. We want it to start sliding back at frame 16. One position key. And at frame 42, we want it to snap back into place. And we could also add a little animation for the kickback that the hammer snapping back into place would create. Now let's see what it looks like, the final version. That is nice, I like it. Re-export. Alright, seriously this time, that is it. Make sure you save your file and export it. And that is it. We're good to go. Alright, this is the last video that'll concern any type of animation regarding our first-person weapon. Quickly, we're going to do a holster and a unholster animation for the sake of people getting the ramp in and ramp out values to their proper setting, because sometimes if you don't set the ramp in and ramp out value correctly, when you take it in and out, or when you holster and unholster it in the game, it'll cause a little glitch that's quite annoying. I'm going to show you how to fix that. First, we're going to delete these keyframes, all these extra ones that I just deleted, and then we're going to save as Beretta. Let's see, holster, and save. Now, the beginning and end animation frame don't need to be the same as it usually does for most animations, because this is going to be, these animations are a lot different than most of the other ones that we do, and we won't be seeing it return to its default position. This is when it's going to go off screen and then we start pulling out the next weapon. So quite simply, we're just going to put it off the screen. I'm just going to do a quick, cheap holster. We'll just bring that crap down. And then, that's a little too cheap. Okay, maybe I'll just bring that up to 15. And then set some quick keys real quick. Make sure it's on the right frame. We'll do a quick key placement. Get a little fancy, bring this back a little bit. And then maybe we'll bring the arm out this way. And then on this frame right here, I think I should delete this frame. And then it'll have the hand curl up into a fist. Just quickly, hopefully it won't take too much time. And hopefully 3ds Max won't crash again. And then we'll bring the thumb down a little bit. Sort of like that. And then we'll go down to frame 14. And then we'll bring the whole hand down. And hopefully that looks a little bit better of a holster animation. I think we'll be better off sitting in the bottom, last frame to frame 18. It goes down a little bit too fast. And then once we do that, we could set the frame number, or the length, to 18. Make sure it plays properly. I want to speed it up a little bit. It looks a little too fast. Maybe it's frame 16. Looks about right. Okay, now the part I was driving to earlier was we need to set the ramp in and ramp out values properly. Okay, the ramp in and ramp out values is basically a smooth transition to animation. Yeah, it's basically a smooth transition between animations. Since this gun isn't going to need a smooth transition to the next weapon switch, which, if you guys have played the Hive mod, you'll notice that when you sometimes switch guns and you holster the weapon, you'll notice that the gun pops up really quick for the last second, and then it finally switches to the next weapon. To fix this, we need to set the ramp out to 0. It's okay to smooth an animation into it with ramping in, because we're coming from over here. Say if the animation was like somewhere over here, the animation -5 frames, it started there, and then it was coming here. We're ramping into this animation from it. So we're coming here and then we ramp in, and then we finish it, and then we don't need a ramp out. We don't need no smooth transition to the next animation. And that's about it. Once we got that, we just hit export, we'll turn off auto key, save it, hit export. Same place as usual, the MVF reduce folder. And that's it. And for the draw, we could do pretty much the same thing. We do just save as from this, which is a very similar animation. Just draw it. Reverse these because we're ramping into a draw. Actually, you know what? Wait. No. Yeah, we're ramping out from a draw, because it will come up from the bottom of the screen and then come up, and then it will smoothly transition to the next animation, not the one before it. So we'll freeze this. We'll just select all this crap, and all we gotta do is basically switch these two around. Oh, that's wonderful. That is beautiful. Wow. Well, it looks like we can't reverse it. You know, I think I got an idea. Freeze this again. And then we select all these. Go to frame 17, one frame after. Get the source time of 0. Then we'll delete. No, we'll not delete that yet. We need that still. And we'll go to this frame and get a source time of 16. And then hit OK. Holy crap. Okay, so let's move this over a little bit. It needs to be placed in a positive frame. That's what I was bitching about. So we'll just move this, put the source time to 16, position and rotation, and then now we could delete these old keyframes. And this will be our draw animation. Pulls it up really fast. But that'll do. Let's unfreeze it. Save it. Make sure ramp out is set to 2. We're not ramping in from another animation, we're ramping out to smooth it with the idle animation or whatever animation is next. Hit export, and we change this to draw. And that's it. After we save it, that's it for ramping out, ramp in, ramp out, and holster and draw. Hopefully by now, with the skills that you've been shown and techniques, you'll be able to create a simple shoot animation or a running animation. That should be easy as well. Okay, hopefully by now you have all your animations. I took it upon myself to do a shoot animation. I didn't do a run animation though, but this is pretty much every animation we might need. And all we're going to do is simply run it through MVF Reduce. Okay, you already got this. Just make sure you have this batch file in the same directory as your MVF Reduce exe, and the same with your animations. Just double clicking on this should process all of it, and we get all the RFA files we need. Once we got that, we can cut these, go to our red faction folder, and then we could paste these all into our test Beretta. Okay. Now the next step is we need a new VPP file, so we'll grab a new one. Test Beretta, paste. I just want to do edit, and we want to remove all this crap, and then put our stuff in here. We're also going to have to include the texture for our weapon. If I can remember where I put it. Let's go to scenes, textures, weapon textures, and it should be Beretta.tga. And then once we got that, I think that should be everything for now. Oh, and we need a weapons table, duh. So let's go to tables. Want to view it? Weapons, extract. Two mods. Test Beretta. Hit OK. Once we're in there, we could throw that in there, and then that should be it for now. We got to rename this to Tut Beretta VPP, so it's ours, and we can get rid of all this crap now. All we got to worry about is just replacing the weapons table. You open up Notepad, drag the weapons table in here, and I think we should override the pistol. This seems like a logical weapon to replace with the weapon we've been making. I've also included a little text file in there. Let me go find it. It's this right here. This shows the correct coordinates that I'm adjusting the values to. And right here, where is it? The offset, first person offset. You paste this right above here. It's commented out, that won't really affect it. It's just here for reference and easy manipulation. First thing we want to do is set this to 0. All these. X, Y, and Z to 0. So 0, comma 0, comma 0. This second one below here, it says first person offset SS. This is for the PlayStation 2 version for split screen. I would suggest just paste that crap like that. It doesn't really matter. And then that looks about right. And then we could just save this. Oh no, we need to add the tell the game to override the resources. Duh. So we open up this Beretta VPP, go to view. and then we can start assigning it to what we want. The animation will be tut underscore Beretta idle. And we can just copy and paste this to all of them. This is just quickly so we get the format. Of our naming in place. And then we set the proper ones to what we want. Set that to shoot. Fire fail, we don't really need one of these, so we could just remove this whole line. Idle 1 and idle 2, we don't need those. Those are not necessary. Reload. Draw. And holster. I didn't make a jump one, so I could leave that on idle. Custom start and custom leave. I think we should just leave that to idle. Is there anything I'm forgetting? And that's about it. We need to tell the game we want to replace the current weapon mesh. We can't assign these animations to a model that doesn't even have the same setup. So if they're, let's see, this is third person V3D. We're looking for the first person. We're gonna figure out where it's at. First person mesh. Also note that this says V3D when in actual it's really a V3C. I already explained that this is a typo and should be ignored. So we're just going to go ahead and change this to Beretta. And we can go ahead and save that. We can X out this. And we can minimize this notepad. I'm going to edit this table again. Drag the weapons table in here. Save. And right now I think we're ready to do a test run. Hopefully this DirectX Windows Force thing will work properly, because last time I tried it, it crashed the damn desktop. So we're going to go ahead and try it anyway. Let's go to Red Faction Launcher real quick so I can adjust my settings. Windows Red Faction. Setup. I want it to be run in Android 600. And then now we'll test it. Oh, and look at our pistol, made it in the game. As you can see, it's all jacked up and not in the proper position, but that's okay, we could fix that. That's what the offset is for. Stupid useless DirectX Windows Force didn't even work. And that's it. All you gotta do from here on out is just go here. It looks like first that the weapon was way up too high, so we could adjust that. This right here shows the X, Y, and Z axis. All we gotta do is just find out which way we want to move it and move it in that direction. First off, it appeared to be way too high, so we gotta lower it. Negative numbers means this goes down, so we're gonna type this to -0.5. I think that should be around a good number. And all you gotta do from here on out is just save it. And drag that into that and test it. That's way too low. But that's just about it. All you gotta do from here on out is just modify those settings and you got it made. And that's all there really is to it. Well, it takes just a lot of patience and yep. Alright. So till then, see you guys later.